Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where two grown ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name is Nacho, and joining me, as per usual, is AJ Pickett, the mighty glue stick himself.
Hello.
I think I got that round the wrong way. I normally do it the other way around.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all good. All good.
Change is good. Change is
Yeah.
good.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, how are we?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's
Awesome.
a lovely summer day here in the Bay of Plenty. It's currently snowing down south, as far as I know, which is very weird for this time of year, but there it is.
So, last long weekend before Christmas,
Yeah.
so making the
Oh,
most of it. It was
man.
meant to be
Why'd you have to
meant to
say
be
that?
meant to be It was meant to be raining today, but the sun has come out, and my wife has decided to invite friends around. Which, as a
As a
nerd,
cat.
as a nerd that kind of doesn't really like to socialize too much unless it's around a table.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway,
Well, in this case, you're role-playing a normal human being who's having a barbecue with friends, so you score
Yeah.
points for all the times that you're not weird. Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Talking of
Yeah,
making your life into a game, that's the topic of our podcast today.
So today, at the beginning of this podcast, I recommended a book to AJ. And in that time, he has consumed the entire series. He's surpassed me.
Well, I am a sage and a voracious reader, so yeah.
Yeah, I am not a binge reader. That thing you said about how many books you read in your lifetime really ate away at my brain, which is now
It does, doesn't it?
Now I'm just consuming audiobooks whenever I can. Why I'm now making the dog food, I've got headphones plugged in listening to an audiobook. I've just made a list of I need to read. These are novels I need to read in my life. And they're not. I'm not talking about shit like The Great Gatsby. I'm talking shit I need to read all the Greyhawk novels. I need to read all the Dragonlance novels.
All the Terry Pratchett novels, and all Douglas Adams novels, and
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not even I'm trying to better myself to be more sort of a scholar, but but this novel was a particular genre known as LitRPG, which stands for literary role playing, where it merges role playing mechanics such as visible stats, skill progression, and leveling with fantasy and sci-fi storytelling.
It's not to be confused with choose your own adventure fighting fantasy game books, or things like the movie Tron, where a normal person goes into a video game sort of thing. It's generally if it's got statistics and stuff, which you find in role playing games like strength, intelligence, and stuff, become a part of it, and the character of the main character or protagonist in the story is aware of it. So yeah. It's kind of specific because it has to be, because it's such a wide genre of literature.
It's probably influenced by that. I would argue that Ready Player One could almost be a lit RPG, but I don't think it is considered a lit RPG.
Not really, but it does have elements of it, because he's on a quest to upgrade his gaming gear, sort of thing. Even Harry Potter gets the Nimbus 2000 broomstick and stuff. But it started in 1978. The first example is Quag Keep by Andre Norton. Is the first time that it enters the world of characters like in a D&D game. So pretty much as soon as Dungeons and Dragons came about, people started writing RPG. RPG.
I think you could almost argue prior to that, I would even consider Alice in Wonderland almost a lit RPG in some sense.
Yeah. Like if you had things like there was a specific boost to a stat or something when she ate a mushroom or something like that, but she does grow in size and things. But yeah, I guess if Lewis Carroll had access to role-playing games, he probably would have included elements of it to it.
Yeah, it's probably more drug influenced than anything.
It was very straight-laced. I mean, there's a lot of Christian elements to Alice in Wonderland, and Lewis Carroll's Voyage, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is very, very Christian orientated.
I think there was a book around in the 80s as well that was similar by Larry Niven as well. that did where someone entered a video game. I remember that. I can't remember what it was called. Dream Park, I believe the name was. Do you like Larry Niven science fiction?
Yeah, yeah. I like all the
Yeah.
classic science fiction authors. E.
Um,
Doc Smith and Niven and Asimov. And, yeah.
so the official term LitRPG was coined in 2012, and it
Mm,
was made by a Russian author by the name of Eskimo, who formalized it as a genre.
mm,
So it's actually comes from in Russia. It's
yeah.
a
Yeah, which it's fine because Russia's got a hell of a literary tradition, easily equal to the West. And although I haven't read any Russian literature as far as I know, any translated stuff. I probably it's on my list of things to do one day.
we
But
got it.
yeah,
I thought you were going to make the Russian joke again.
no, no, I got that out of my system in another chat room before we started.
um, yeah, so it has defining elements would be a leveling system. Characters kind of level up as they progress, gaining powers and new abilities.
They have
They
stats
have
and
their
things.
stats. Yeah, so imagine Lord of the Rings, but the characters are got character sheets.
Yeah, yeah. And when
And
when Frodo puts on his mithril shirt, it's like Frodo has gained invulnerability to blood.
mm,
Yeah,
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 yeah. So they have skill trees, progression, and these RPG inspired elements create a real sense of participation and satisfaction for readers. As the characters progress, you kind of experience the thrill again to actually gaming. So
mm,
I know it's getting really popular as well. Is not so much people since that whole Twitch movement. There's a like in popularity is people not actually playing video games, but watching people play video games. And
yeah.
I can lit RPG is like the literally the novel way of doing that. Of
Yeah,
reading.
it's like vicariously having a character and playing through a game, except you're not making the decisions. You're riding along and having it unveiled to you as it goes.
Hmm.
And Dungeon Crawler Carl, which we're reading at the moment, is very much like that. The twists and
Yeah,
turns in the story, and like trying to describe what's going on. I was trying to describe it to my mum yesterday. What
yeah.
Dungeon Crawler Carl was about. And I said, look, if I just described one of the characters in the story, you would think I was crazy. Um,
Hmm.
and I imagine Matt Dinahan, as he's writing it, is just thinking, how am I getting away with this? Because it's so zany
So,
and
what?
over the
Just before
top.
we get to that, I just want to touch on one point with RPG, and why Dungeon Crawler Carl is the subject of today, or
Mm,
one of the main subjects
one
of
of
today.
them, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He Who
So,
Kills Monsters is also a really good example.
so the thing about Lit RPG is it's self-published. So Lit
Mm,
RPG authors are innovating with non-traditional publishing paths like Royal Road, Patreon, and Kickstarter
yep,
by
and
serializing.
drive through RPG and
Yep.
those sort of things. Yeah.
They also publish their work online, like as web books as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and platforms like this are allowing them to sort of crowdfund and secure financial backing without bypassing traditional publishers. They're also enabled to engage more creative freedom and faster engagement with their audience.
Yeah.
So it's very punk rock. So and in that respect, it is both good and bad. So I think you get both ends of the spectrum. You get some really shockingly bad lit RPG.
Hmm.
At the same time, you're getting some real like amazing, innovative stuff.
Yeah, it's good because
Some
it's capitalism in its essence, really. It's a free market, so anybody can enter, free to play, and you are judged on the quality of your reader's response to your work. So if you are making good stuff, there's a chance that it will be picked up eventually by a major publisher and make its way into Whitcoulls and big bookstores, all over the place. So it's a crowd-funded churning mass of who knows what quality, and slowly but surely the cream rises to the top, which I think is the perfect example of what a free market economy should be.
yeah.
Bad things
We,
don't get supported, good things do.
you've kind of hit the nail on the head without even realizing. So, Dungeon Crawler Carl is the first lit RPG that is now released by a publishing house.
Right.
So, Penguin House has released a hard copy version of the first book on the 15th of October 2024. So
Wow.
only last week. So it is the only lit RPG that has actually been officially published,
I would have
and only came.
loved to have been in on that phone call or meeting or first email or something like that where the author gets, Penguin has called me, you know.
Yeah,
Penguin's knocked on my door and said, yeah, we want your shit, you know. That would be awesome, because that's the exact opposite of what it's always been like. It must have been like
yeah.
the publishing house is like, has he called us? No. Well, we want this. Has he called any other publisher? No, he hasn't.
Mm.
No. You mean we have to call him? Yes. This is not a good precedent, you know. But
This
they've got to move with the
this
times
reminds
too.
me. It reminds me of 2000 AD, like this punk rock approach to like self-publishing and creating this genre, finding an audience, because if it gone through the traditional means of like publishing, editoring, sending to editors, this isn't. I don't know who this is for. Um, just the fact that it went and found its own audience by itself through its fans, and has now become a legitimate genre of books.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so cool.
It is.
Um,
It's a real litmus sign of the times, example of how the online economy now works. That anybody can, like, if you've got the gumption to give it a go, like if you're making a YouTube channel or a podcast as we are or something like that, you just have at it and be true to yourself, and you really can't predict. Like you can say, I think maybe this topic will get a big audience, but you really don't know. And because the population of the world is so huge now, no matter how niche you're, like, let's say you like stuffing and mounting ladybugs as a taxidermy specialty, and you make a YouTube channel about it because you're passionate about it, and you would make videos about it whether you're getting paid or not. I guarantee you, there's 2,000 people out there who will monetize your channel eventually if they find you. That's the thing, and then you'll be the world's expert on stuffing and mounting ladybugs. And you'll have merch with, like, specific jokes for ladybug collectors and aficionados. I kid you not. It's that specific. So yeah, if you have a passion for something, I guarantee you there's an audience out there for it. May not be a million people, but it'll be enough to get a YouTube channel and give you an income, probably, if you're really, really passionate about it. And that's also my suggestion to people, is if you are going into this broadcasting or that the daily grind and slog of making content, you got to make sure that you're staying genuine to yourself. You're not putting on some sort of personality, and you're not forcing yourself to make content about something that you're not really passionate about, because you're going to burn out. For sure, you're going to burn out. Absolutely. I've seen it so many times. It's almost guaranteed. Yeah, you got to follow your own passions, for sure.
Yeah, don't just jump on something because it's popular and
yeah.
No
You'll
point.
still probably have imposter syndrome because you're contending with all these people who do put on these fake things. But in the long run, yeah, they will all fall by the wayside, and you'll carry through because of your passion.
Yeah.
Mm.
I still have imposter syndrome, but
well,
that's all right.
We're still here. I mean, we've made it past 10 episodes, so we're clearly, slightly good.
I still turn up every Sunday, and people want to join me.
Like, as I say, like, we're starting this not expecting anything from it. We're just doing it because we really enjoy doing it. So
yeah, I mean, we just decided to record our chats that we were having anyway.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody who's listening.
This is just something we were doing before.
Yeah,
maybe we should record this.
We're slightly more organized now. Like, we pick topics and we come up with bullet points of stuff to cover. Speaking of which, what's our first topic of conversation?
I think we'll do on a spotlight on Dungeon Crawler Carl. So I'll do a quick synopsis of the book. So it is by Matt Dinnerman.
Mm-hmm.
It follows Carl, a Coast Guard veteran, and Princess Donut, his ex-girlfriend's showcat, in a deadly dungeon filled with traps, monsters, and intergalactic viewers. The post-apocalyptic reality TV setup compels Carl to balance survival with entertaining his alien audience. Glurp, glurp.
Glurp, glurp.
That's an in-joke. Originally self-published in 2020, the book has gained popularity
Huge
And this was
popularity.
also aided also by another independent company that I'll get into later, called Sound Booth Theatre,
Mm,
who did the audiobook adaptation, which boosted it. And this is another something I want to talk about when we get to it, because this has been another big part of the lit RPG boom, is its audiobook side.
mm. Which is
Um,
interesting because I don't do audiobooks. So yeah,
yep,
it's kind of weird. Like I'm one of those people that doesn't have an internal monologue, so I can listen to music and read a book at the same time because I don't hear the words when I'm reading. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll make a movie of it as I'm reading it and stuff, but I can just read words without having to hear them, sort of thing. Which
I
is
do. I do both because I need to consume as many books as I can in my lifetime, and if it's through my eyes or through my ears, I don't care. It's
yeah.
getting in there. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I suppose
yeah,
I could because I do like have my earpods in all the time when I'm walking down to pick up groceries and stuff. So
yeah,
I could probably listen to an audiobook. But I also
I,
like 70s rock and stuff. So
yeah, yeah. I have three dogs as well. So, I have three dogs, and I have two daughters, and a Brazilian wife. So I spend a lot of time walking my dogs because
the noise, the ambient noise level,
there's a lot of shouting in my house. Not because we're arguing, just South
because you,
Americans
yeah,
are
passionate.
passionate people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do spend a lot of time putting my noise cancelling headphones on and deciding to walk my dogs. I just want to get as many books under my belt. I set myself little goals every year. I don't know why. Like, this year I decided I really need to revisit all of Douglas Adams and Neil
Mm,
Pratchett's books.
mm,
Um, and we're in October and I haven't got round to it. I've been
right.
sidetracked by something else.
Yeah,
Uh,
Terry Pratchett's really interesting. His first novels, The Color of Magic and stuff like that. They he had lots of notes in the margins down the bottom, so he'd like make little subsections of stuff that he was talking about in the main page, and then down the bottom he'd have all these notes and stuff. And I think he always saw that as a bad writing habit. I always thought it was a feature. It was really distinctive how he did that, so I quite enjoyed it.
yeah.
I was a bit disappointed later on in his books where he sort of dropped doing that. And if I was ever to write a sci-fi novel or fantasy novel, I would probably certainly have subnotes, footer notes, and stuff as well.
Hmm. Um, Speaking of Pratchett though, and Carl, so this is a very dark. This book has dark humor. It
Oh
blends
yeah,
high stakes action, dark humor, and satire of fame. It's like
the
the
highest stakes action, like yeah, Carl is always throwing himself into absolute suicide situations,
yeah,
and just coming through from by the skin of his teeth, which is really great because dinner Matt
uh, Dinner Man.
Dinnerman. He really is really skilled at subverting your expectations and doing the whole bait and switch sort of thing in the story. And he
Mm.
does it effortlessly. Seems to do it effortlessly, very well. So yeah, and
You got a case of the nachos. You can
yes,
bring
yeah,
out to
yeah. And I really enjoy that. So it keeps you constantly hooked. Not only is there that incremental progression in the story, so he's gaining things, and he's also it's every novel is a level of the dungeon that he's traveling through.
Yeah,
So you don't know what the next dungeon is going to be because the crawlers are not aware of what they get hints of what's going to be in the next novel.
yeah,
And Matt and Carl is always he's an anarchist and he's been given something in the game which gives him a whole super plot above it all, which has a thread which connects him to the past history of the dungeon world, which of
yeah,
course gives you an insight into all of the dungeon world because you are Carl. You are all of the stuff that he's aware of outside of the above and beyond what all he's supposed to know is stuff that you're given as hints and clues as the reader. So
yeah.
it's really deftly woven in there how he's done it.
Do you know who he reminds me of? Ash from Evil Dead
Yeah,
3.
yeah, yeah.
He's got that similar charisma and dry humor. He's very kick-ass. He's very capable.
Mm,
Um, there's a hilarious. So the premise is he's found out he found out his girlfriend was cheating on him with someone else, and he's at home looking after her cat, which he hates at the beginning.
Mm.
He hates this cat. The cat is outside in a tree. He goes outside in his boxer shorts and leather jacket
And Crocs. Yeah.
and Crocs, trying to get this
In
cat out of the
freezing
tree.
cold Seattle winter, in the
Yeah,
middle at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
yeah. And then next thing, every building around him collapses, killing everyone else
And cars. Yep.
in the world. And a sort of a dungeon entrance opens up, and the cat runs in there. He runs in after it.
Yep.
And then we enter it, and it turns out it's a Big Brother, intergalactic Big Brother setup,
Mm.
similar to Dungeon of the Mad Mage, where in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, the Undermountain's 20 levels. How many? I can't remember how many levels are in this.
There's 18 as far
18.
as we know. Yeah.
Yeah, and similar to the Undermountain, every level is a different type of environment and provides different challenges.
So he goes into a bit with the alien technology. Essentially, each one of the dungeons is inside the crust of the Earth, and the crust of the Earth, of course, is enormous. You can put many atmospheres and stuff, skies and landscapes inside the crust of the Earth, and have room to spare. Of course, this is kind of ignoring things like heat and magma and all that sort of stuff and pressure, but they've got super advanced alien technology. So he just sort of writes that off and shoves it under the rug of we don't know. But they have teleportation and magic effects and things inside the game. But we are also aware of the fact that this is not the only dungeon world, and there's other companies, other corporations, which can be either civilizations as corporations or companies that are run by conglomerates and things like that. So it's a very realistic view of a galactic society, I think, in many ways, and that it's the entertainment is super extreme because there is no moral police in the galaxy. It's every man, every tentacle for itself to earn money through whatever means possible, and we all know that sex and violence sells, and so it's a horrible situation, and it's incredibly abusive to the people who are in the dungeon. But that's the way it is. Also, another major aspect of the game is, and the novels, is that the dungeon is run by an AI, and the AI is going off the rails, and includes some. The AI has a kink about feet, which forces Cal to never be able to wear shoes and never to be able to put pants on. So he's always barefoot.
He gets toe rings
with toe rings, and the AI occasionally gets really creepy.
It reminds me of
him smushing things with his feet.
It reminds me of Paranoia, that side.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Also, it introduces things like he has a PR agent. They have sponsors.
Yep.
They go on at the end of each level. They go on to a chat show.
Yep. Or sometimes in the middle of the level, like right in the middle of the action, it's like you have to go to the safe room to go on the chat show, and then Zev, his manager, shows up, and she looks like a little guppy fish in a water environmental suit.
yeah.
And there's a lawyer. There's the syndicate who sort of oversees the whole system. They're these parasite things like the Goa'uld from Stargate. Who occupy other species' bodies, and he's this cloaked figure with a fishbowl head with this parasite worm inside it, talking to Cal, which is hilarious.
He's got a mentor as well.
Yep, Mordecai.
Yeah, we should probably get into Princess Donut.
Yeah,
she's a massive part, and it was the reason because I'm a dog guy, you're a cat guy, and this is one of the things I was like, why I recommended it to you because of the cat, because she's so cool. She is very much a princess. So the cat suddenly can talk.
Yeah. So picture a like a Burmese fluffy cat, long-haired cat, who's a show cat. So has been inbred and is basically presented as show cats and stuff, and by Carl's ex-girlfriend, Beatrice. And so her whole life has been Beatrice and going to shows and winning shows and stuff. But as a cat, then she's put into the dungeon, and all of a sudden she's ascended to sapience as a player, not as a pet or a companion, but as a fellow player. Not only that, but her charisma and stats are so high because they have to uplift her to be capable as a quadruped with no hands and stuff, she has higher stats than Carl right at the beginning, so she's in charge of the team by default. And as they progress through the dungeon, they're constantly leveling up rising up their base statistics and skills and things, um, because it's the more you use it, the more skill points you get in its sort of system to encourage them to fight and go out and adventure and to be entertaining for the fans. So it's perfectly set up so that everything makes logical sense why they have to do these things. And then of course the story is completely zany and over the top, with all these different elements, and each dungeon level has a specific theme, um, that they have to figure out how to get to the safe rooms before the level collapses, forcing them to carry on to the next level below. So that's the other thing too. The major plot driver is they have a limited amount of time on that level before it collapses and basically digitizes everything inside it, essentially killing and removing it, so that he has to progress through the dungeon. Not only that, but there's the promise is if they make it to if anybody makes it to level 18, they win back the planet Earth, essentially,
Mm.
and save the world. And so that is your premise as like, well, there's potentially 18 books in the series, but nobody's ever made it to level 18, so maybe Matt will fizzle out and not make it to 18 books, but I suspect he probably will.
Yeah, we're up to book 6, and book 7 has been announced to come out in February next year.
Yeah. So I could see this being a long-running series, and I'm here for it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to run out of steam. Like,
No.
he's just a creative genius. Like, it's constantly, every book is a different theme, and because I thought it might get old fast, with a lot of these sort of satire type dark humor. The humor starts to wear thin.
Yeah.
But so far, I'm only up to book 5. I imagine you've finished it.
I'm on book. Where am I? I've got it open right here.
I haven't started book 5, I should say. I've just finished book 4.
How do I get the stats for this? I really hate I'm not good with Kindle. Page 645, chapter 72. On the, what book is this?
I've got some exciting news, though.
Anyway.
So according to Deadline, which I think is quite a reputable. No, I can't talk. Reputable.
Reputable.
Yeah, news source. Deadline. So this was published on August the 21st of this year. Dungeon Crawler Carl is being adapted for television by Universal International Studios, with Chris Yost leading the project.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that happening. This is certainly not something that you could have done even 5 years ago, probably turned it into a TV show. But yeah.
It is
sure.
My problem with Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it's not a problem at all, is it's my first LitRPG, and I think I've sent my benchmark incredibly high now for my next one. When I dive into another one, I'm gonna kind of be disappointed, because I think I've started with the cream of the crop.
Yeah. The Butcher's Masquerade is the one that I'm reading at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just finished Feral Gods.
Gate of the Feral Gods.
Yeah, which I think is book 4.
That was the last one. Yeah, in the desert with the pyramid
and the camel prostitutes.
Yeah. Oh man, how do we describe this? How do you describe it to people without sounding crazy?
Yeah, it's just, and it's got these reoccurring characters that are just,
I think one of my favorite NPCs is Prepotente. He's this goat. He's another sapient animal that was previously a goat, and he retains certain aspects of goatness. Like, he'll just scream randomly. Which is what goats will occasionally do.
Mine is probably Agatha, the old lady that's just in a wheelchair that survived in a rest home, that is somehow like just crawling her way through the dungeon by herself.
There's some mysterious, like, he occasionally has Agatha in the background, and he's like, there's some plot which is going on through all these novels. So I don't know if Carly, if Matt even knows how he's going to integrate her into the thing, but you've set up the promise now that
It is,
that we will one day understand what the hell's going on with Agatha. But yeah,
yeah,
we don't
there's
know.
just this little old lady in a wheelchair that should be dead, that
Yeah,
somehow just is slowly coasting away through the
yeah.
dungeon.
She's like a homeless lady with a shopping cart,
Yeah,
and she'll just be like turns up, and then Carl everybody just ignores her, and then she moves on to the next level. It's like
yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah, and it has, like, things like achievements as well, like, if you ever played an Xbox game,
Hmm.
some of those achievements are really funny. I wanted to steal a bit. I did actually steal a little bit of this for my Dungeon of the Mad Mage game, and introduced kind of a Hallister Blackcoat is more of a game show host than a Mad Mage.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
certainly works. Yep, yep.
yeah,
That's a really good way to run Undermountain. Actually, come to think.
yeah, and he's kind of broadcasting it all to the multiverse, and yeah, and just yeah, the object is to get to level 20. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, that's a hard adventure to run. It's just too big. we
It is
kind of
very big, yeah, yeah,
we just
and it was set up for a different time in Dungeons and Dragons and different style of play that most people play these days, where
yeah,
you expect your character to die at some point.
it's
Like how far can you get through Undermountain sort of thing before it kills you?
well, it's kind of like you start off and 6 months later your players go, so we're still in the dungeon.
Yeah,
Yeah, they start to get a little bit sick of being in a dungeon after a while.
yeah,
Um, I think it would work if you need to sort of have a method of getting them back out to Waterdeep to have a little bit of like a break in the dungeon crawling and then being able to return to back to the dungeon.
mm.
Um,
So
yeah,
the books in the series, we've got Dungeon Crawler Carl, that's the first one. Then we've got Carl's Doomsday Scenario. Then the Anarchist Cookbook. That's where he gets a special book
mm,
which is hidden from the game. That's built into the game somehow. And then
yeah.
Gate of the Feral Gods. Then the Butcher's Masquerade. And then uh, hang on.
Then you got the new one coming.
Yeah, then there's Eye of the Bedlam Bride, and then This Inevitable Ruin, which is book 6 and book 7.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anyway, good series. Anything else you want to say on Dungeon Crawler Carl without spoiling it?
No, just Matt, if you're listening to this, thanks.
Yeah. He's this is so underground. This Dungeon Crawler Carl doesn't exist on like Wikipedia.
Mm,
Um, Sound Booth Theatre doesn't exist on Wikipedia. Like that's how underground this lit RPG, and yeah, it's so popular and endured so much with so many people.
hmm.
Um, I just like how punk rock that is, that you can make something this popular and not have a Wikipedia page and be
Yeah,
self-published.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just
and have
before I was reading this, I was also reading He Who Fights Monsters,
yeah,
which
we'll get
is
into that. So
yeah.
yeah, let's talk about other lit RPGs, eh?
Hmm.
So go with that one. That's on the list.
So yeah, Matt's written a total of 22 books, so he's already a published author, an established author. The He Who Fights with Monsters is somewhat different because it's a writing team, as far as I know. Uh, so the author is known as his online persona of Shirtaloon.
Mm.
His name is Travis.
You keep cutting out, mate. You keep walking away from your
Yeah, sorry,
microphone.
no, I was leaning forward to look at the screen. Travis something or other.
That might be the guy that narrates it.
No, that's the actual author. I listened to him on a podcast where he was talking about something or other, and I decided that I didn't want to listen to him anymore if I wanted to continue enjoying his work.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that makes any sense. Yeah, like sometimes you don't really want to know the person behind their creativity because you might not agree with some of the things they say. But yeah, I'm quite capable of separating art from artist. That's one of the things. As an artist myself, I don't want my work to be judged by my personality. You know, somebody might not like me or the things I say, but they might like my work. But it would be sad. In that one, you've got a laid back Australian anarchist who finds himself in a in a fantasy a D&D esque world. But it also includes a lot of very specific online anime referencing, like isekai, they call it, where there's a certain there's certain genres of personality types and things like that and these lingo that they use that a lot of anime fans think that everybody knows what they're talking about. We don't. Um, not
Yeah.
everybody watches anime. Um,
Yeah, well, isekai is, I think it's Japanese for different world,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's more of a mixture of manga, anime,
yeah.
and video games.
Yeah. Japan has been doing a lot of this sort of stuff for a while, but now you're getting a lot of animes which have this lit RPG element to them. And if you look on Crunchyroll, there's certain series and stuff like that where they take advantage of this, where the characters they're interacting with are NPCs, and the person who's interacting with them, basically from the perspective of the people inside the dungeon world, the person who's interacting with them has a psychosis where they believe they're in a game. And that could be quite a problem with a person in like the real world who has, a psychosis, and they think they think that the world is not real and they're a character in a game. That's becoming more and more prevalent because of video game culture. Um,
Mm.
that people with a underlying mental problem can have that delusion, yeah, which
Yeah.
is real bad when they decide that they have to kill somebody to get points, yeah, and they turn into a murderer.
Yeah, I've heard this is the one that's probably the most recommended, next to Dungeon Crawler, Carl.
Yeah,
So
it is very different though. Like the humor element is certainly less, and it's more a lot more dark psychology. There's a certain element of that dark psychology, the trauma that it's having on Carl as he goes through it, and it's represented as a rushing river sound of the stress building up on him, where it's becoming more and more difficult and more accelerated, and he has to control more and more things and organize more and more people, and there's more and more people that he has to protect. That natural stress level is represented in the character,
mm,
where he just can't relax. Um,
Carl, yeah,
yeah,
you will not break me.
yeah,
It's
and
the
that's what he's
ongoing
clinging. He's clinging to that. You're not gonna.
mantra.
Yeah, and the game is definitely trying to, basically drive him crazy.
Yeah, he's become the leader and the de facto leader of these kind of misfit people that are trapped down there.
Yeah.
So I'm just reading the synopsis for this off Royal Road, which Royal Road is a self-publishing website, which is
Hmm.
where a lot of these RPGs first started.
Yeah.
So He Who Fights Monsters, yeah, you're right, by Shirtaloon, and it's got in brackets Travis Deverell.
Deverell, there's the one. Yeah.
Jason wakes up in a mysterious world of magic and monsters. He'll face off against cannibals, cultists, wizards, monsters, and that's just on his first day.
Hmm.
He's going to need courage, he's going to need wit, and he's going to need some magic powers of his own. But
Mm.
first, he's going to need pants.
Yeah.
Another pantless hero.
Yeah, well, the idea is that in an RPG, you always start off as a level one peon, essentially a peasant, and then you get gear and experience and build up to be an adventurer.
Hmm.
And in He Who Fights Monsters, he starts essentially he's teleported into a different world, and a body is created for him, so he's no longer human. He is a being that's been transported through a magical accident, essentially. So it's not normal for this to happen, but it has happened before in this situation.
Yeah.
And he's in this world where everyone in the world is real. So they're actual people, characters living in there, and that's their reality. And there is basic physics which explain everything that's going on. And also, it's revealed to you during the series that Earth is also part of this universe as well, but its Earth is at a low magic state, and is not aware of the overall architecture of the universe and how it all works and stuff. So it's cool in that it's both. He seems to have been transported into an RPG, but in actual fact, he's just been transported to a world with different physics. Yeah, but he's also no longer human, and he becomes less and less human as time goes on, which is interesting. And yeah, also plays on the psychology of the character getting very dark, and him becoming murderous and things like that.
So you'd say it's a lot darker than
Yeah,
Dungeon Crawler, a lot more serious.
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. There's two things on this website that really stand out to me, which I want to comment on. Um, One is he's put a note in here saying, "Please note, I am Australian, and this story is written in Australian English, so there'll be less of the letter Z and more of the letter U."
Right. So I would
And the
say in
other,
Australian, a lot of more letter A because they don't pronounce R at the end of words.
hmm. And the other thing here is he's got access the Discord here. So I would just want to comment on that because that is, I think, one of the hidden successes of this genre is you're able to just connect straight away with the author of the works and comment and feedback, and I think it's what's rather than get feedback from a publishing house and an editor and some suit,
Hmm.
uh, you're actually getting like feedback from the people that are reading your stuff and enjoying
Yeah.
your stuff
And
or
that's
not enjoying
critical
your stuff.
too. One of the critical aspects of rising above the soup of everybody giving it a go is building your audience from a participatory feedback state. So it's almost crowd funded interest, not just funding. Um, so crowd funded fan support is very important. That's probably why Penguin and stuff approached it. Went, oh, okay. So not only that, not only do you have to demonstrate to a publisher that you're able to, you're not just a one hit wonder. You just produce one novel and that's it. So making a series of novels is you're a writer, and that automatically puts you in the 1% of 1% sort of thing because so many people start a book and don't finish. So many people do one book and that's it. But very few people make a book and then another book and then another book and then another book. For instance, my stats on Grammarly for I write scripts when I make my YouTube videos,
Mm,
and Grammarly keeps track of all my writing and reading, and it says that I write the equivalent of 4 novels a year. So
mm,
there's even though I'm just making YouTube videos, I've built up the muscles of a professional writer, and I can certainly tell over just sheer grunt working at it, like Conan pushing the wheel of pain. After a few years' time, you step away from it, and you're a bulking, muscled writer. My brain is built with these writing muscles, so that now I think, yeah, I probably could sit down and write a novel.
mm.
It would just be a different
Now,
style of the same sort of thing.
now is the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm up for it. You write a
Um, so,
page, I'll write a page.
so I asked the internet a list of because I've only read Dungeon Crawler Carl, so I did um, sort of just have a quick look at a list of other popular lit RPGs. I don't know if you've heard of any of these. I'll just quickly read through them. Stop me if you want to sort of go on any of them. Yeah.
Hmm?
So Hack by Paul Bello, which is a Tower Gates book one. Eric, the son of a VR MMORPG developer, must navigate a new virtual world with friends facing classic lit RPG challenges. That sounds pretty standard.
Hmm.
Most of them are just, you know, a guy starts at level one and progresses.
Yeah, they don't really stray very much away from like whatever traditional role playing game the
mm,
person is trying to emulate. I imagine there's a lot of lit RPG involving Vampire the Masquerade.
yeah, yeah. I
Because
think all
really,
sort of.
it's almost like how in role playing games, for those of you who are not aware, you got the role playing, you got the dungeon master or game master who essentially runs the background story and presents the imaginary world that the person who's playing the game's character is interacting with. So they're essentially the plot of the story, and you're the character that's through that. And the one of the traps of the first time dungeon master is they over world build. They get involved in building the world and stuff without the players being involved before they even get there, and it turns into a hobby in and of itself. Character building and character backstory is another aspect of that particularly in fifth edition has become very prevalent, of people who don't run games but they make characters and they put a lot of effort into making the backstory of their characters in a vacuum without a campaign for their character to be in. And RPG Lit seems like a natural progression of that to I'm going to turn my character into the main character of a novel. And there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's great, particularly if it produces wonderful works like Dungeon Crawler Carl and He Who Fights Monsters.
Yeah, yeah. As a game master, how do you feel about people like players that turn up with 20-page backstories. Is that
Well, like I
something?
say, it's another aspect of the hobby. I think the only problem with I have with it is when it's done without consideration to others, and because role playing games are cooperative, and there's supposed to be a relationship between the dungeon master and the players to develop a world and story and plot and characters together. So when you create a character in a vacuum and then force that into the campaign and expect the all dungeon master to make any adaptations to your character's extensive backstory, at the same time being hesitant to allow the dungeon master to make any changes to your character that are significant, then you run into problems, obviously, because you're at cross purposes and the dungeon master is constantly trying to put a hook into your character that you just are constantly trying to slide out of. So you
Yeah.
don't really want your character to be a participant and subject to the game world. And one of those is you have what's called emotional bleed, which is another term which has come up in 5th edition I haven't heard of before, where people can have put so much of themselves into their character that any impact on their character has an emotional impact on them outside of the game, and that's something which certainly should be avoided. So I'm encouraging people whenever I can to don't make a character until you're sitting down with the dungeon master, and don't make a world and a setting unless you're sitting down with some players. And that was built into the very foundation of role playing games right back in the beginning. Like with Traveller, for instance, it's kind of famous in that, like I was introducing the game Traveller, which is a science fiction role playing game, very old, been around almost as long as Dungeons and Dragons has, where the he made a character then showed up to play the game. I said, no, that's not how it works. You have to all make your characters together as a group, because they're built to be integrated together as a group that is operating a spaceship. And when you're rolling up your character, you roll on all these tables which represent a career that your character has gone through, which builds their skills, builds their background, builds their equipment, and builds their relationship with each other. So they're automatically tied into the campaign world and each other's backstories at the same time before you even start the game.
Mm.
And he didn't get that. And he saw it, and like a lot of people sort of mock it by saying, oh, your character can die in character creation. Yes, they can, because they go into military careers and things like that. They may get disabled by having their arm blown off, but that's the only way you're going to get a cybernetic arm. But they can also be killed in military action as well. That's it. You start again, roll up another character, because
Yeah.
it's supposed to be representing a real life experienced character going through their career before they get to the point where they've got a spaceship and they can go exploring the universe. And he didn't get that. Didn't see the point of it. And I was just like, no, it's fundamentally a part of the game, and the reason why it works so well is because you start off the game integrated with your characters with a pre-established relationship and plots and motives and things which can jump out and get you in the middle of the game as well. Like you can start off with significant debt and have debt collectors after you, and you're escaping in your spaceship to get away from it. And then that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's something that I like to do in my session zeros, just to, there's no point if you're going to run a urban heist campaign, you don't, you probably don't want to play a barbarian.
Yeah, like
Um,
I've got no problems with like safety tools, the safety tools sheet.
yeah,
That's a really good innovation for 5th edition. I think obviously it's been taken to some extremes by people, but the concept itself is really good.
mm,
And I think there's something which is very, very missing there, which is it's entirely one-sided on the side of the player. The DM should also have a safety sheet that they
yeah,
give the players and say, do not make a character that has no ties to any NPCs in the game, that has no family connection, that has no village that they came from, that has no mentors or tutors that they are behooved to go back to continue their training. Like it's
yeah,
perfectly fine to say, okay, your character is leveled up. You don't get any skills until you go back home and train for a few months. And you can't do that until you've finished this adventure and gone back home to the place where you started. And if you're having problems, or your NPC mentor is having problems, you might have to drop your adventure and go back there and help them and save them, or you don't get to train up as being a paladin anymore. You have to join
yeah.
another religion or something. So there's that. It's like, yeah, it can be really hard for dungeon masters because the players have no
My
obligation that way. It's not built into it.
my dungeon master X card or safety tours. I don't do horniness. I don't want to role play sex scenes with you.
Yeah.
at the table.
It's just bloody uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I'm
It's
not
like,
down for
no,
that.
Trevor, I'm not going to play the role of a prostitute that you're having
Yeah,
fun with.
I am not going to play the role of a voluptuous
Yeah.
bartender that you're trying to seduce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'm not your cup of tea to drip your thirst into. Thank you very much.
um, one thing in the new DMG that I thought was pretty cool is a whole bunch of new sort of like cheat sheets for the DM,
Hmm.
and then one of them I noticed tells you what you can kind of gives you, write down your player's character's name, but it also gives you a little tick box of what type of player they are.
Mm.
So are they a role playing type player, or are they a more of a sort of power gamey
Yeah.
type player?
Obviously,
Um,
everybody's on a spectrum. There's
mm,
nothing. First of all, I got to say, there's nothing wrong with power gamers and things like that. I played with all of them.
mhm,
Power gamers are very good because they're quite predictable and they're easy to please.
yep.
You just give them the next thing that they want to make their super thing. And uh, most of and it's perfectly fine for them to absolutely paste things that they designed the character to paste. You know, um, and with power gamer characters, they're often going to have a big glaring weakness because they've concentrated so much on being so good at one particular thing. You can just side widen them with something else, but don't do that too often because that's not what they're there for. They're there to get that sense of I'm frustrated in my life and I can't do everything I want to do in my life, but my
Mhm.
character can absolutely dominate, and that's what they're there for, and it's perfectly fine.
I think it's come also from video game. Like I have a lot of my people in one of my groups. They haven't played many tabletop RPGs before. They've come more from a video game type background, which I think has taught them into that skill tree, similar to a lit RPG of leveling your character by, I'm going to get, if I get this feat, I get this skill, if I get this weapon. So their brains are wired to think of their character sheet like it's I'm trying to optimize my
Yeah.
build. Um,
That's one of the things with 3.5 edition and Pathfinder with feat progression trees.
yeah,
And one of the reasons why I thought fifth edition was such a good step away from that because they gave you a feat package essentially.
mm,
But I can see it starting to creep back in there. That yeah,
yeah,
feats for everything. And there's certain ways to handle that and certain ways not to. And I wish that the people who are currently designing Dungeons and Dragons took really close attention to things that didn't work out well in the past. Like, for
mm,
instance, publishing gazettas with lots of different like character stuff and monster stuff and background stuff in a book. It's like make it all monsters or all characters or all magic items or all something else, or don't
yeah,
do it at all. Just don't give us
yeah,
part stuff that we're going to have a stack of books or PDFs open just to play our character.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also,
They
that always ends up being a power creep if you do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and D&D Beyond has kind of made that like that. So
Oh, there's going to be massive power creep in the architecture which is coming ahead for D
yeah,
and
I
D
quite often
2024.
go. Yeah, I'll quite often have players say, "I'm going to use this. I'm going to do this." And I'm like, "Where's that? What book's that from?" And they're like, "Oh, it's from this book." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, for fuck's sake!"
If
But,
you are a person who plays Magic the Gathering Arena and you see how much the power creep happens in that game, and
hmm,
then think about how that applies to Dungeons and Dragons, that's exactly what we're walking into now, and there's nothing stopping them.
but it's
Yeah.
weird, yeah. People, yeah, and I go totally opposite when I do character creation. I always try and go like I'll be the opposite. I'll enjoy taking a race that is not typically associated with that class, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how I'll build my character. So
Yeah.
I'll go something like a fairy barbarian.
Yeah.
Um,
I
like
often find the longer somebody has been role playing, the more prone to failure the character is that they will build. They like building a character that has glaring weaknesses and you, like if you've been playing for 50 years,
yeah,
you'll understand that the most memorable experiences you have in the game, the anecdotes that you tell people about and after you've played for a long time, are the character deaths. Not their
yeah.
successes, it's their failures. So weak characters are quite often a hell of a lot more entertaining and
I was
memorable
just going to
than
say
strong
that
characters.
I actually get excited when I get a couple of really low ability scores because I always roll traditional ability scores, which is you roll 4d6 and take away the last.
Straight down
And
the line, yeah.
um, and if I've had a couple where I've got two, a 6 and an 8 before. So to me, that's exciting because that's going to determine what my character is. So
Mm.
last time I had that, I played a human, and I chucked that into intelligence and wisdom. So, in theory, according to the monster manual, I think our horse was more intelligent than me, um, which kind of
Fair.
lent itself. So, and then I went a rogue, and then I was like, do you know what? I took inspiration from Elf, and I was like, my backstory was I was a human, and I was raised by gnomes, and I think I'm a gnome. I'm just a very large gnome because I'm not
Right.
smart enough to recognize. So I'm walking around telling everyone I'm a gnome.
Yeah, there's Corporal Carrot from Discworld is a perfect example of that. He was a tall, red-headed man who was raised by dwarves.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's just like
yeah.
I'm really tall.
And I can't figure out, like, and I'm a rogue, and I can't figure out why when I and the DM let me have like the gnome tinkering kit and the tinkering skill, but I'm really shit at it
Right.
because I got big fat fingers and stuff. Like, so I'll be constantly trying to build like tinkering devices to sort of for distractions, but they'll always end up being crap. And I had this constant, and I took when I found out that my intelligence was the same as the horse. I had this ongoing rivalry with our horse, where I was just like the fucking horse is smarter than me.
Yeah.
It just became like a
Yeah.
like he was
Very.
my out of my party. He was my biggest threat. Was the horse?
Yeah. One thing that I've only seen once was a book with the main character where the main character was really stupid, just
Yeah.
low intelligence, and he was a half orc, and essentially the sword, the magical sword that he got, had a personality, and was smarter than him and was manipulating him to do things that the sword was trying to get done. But of course, he had to contend with the fact that this person that was wielding him was a savage half orc that would kill and eat people. Um, and if it annoyed him, he would throw the sword into the sea, sort of thing. He was very straightforward, and it was
Mm.
refreshing because it was such a different take, that you're thinking above the character's perspective, and also a huge writing challenge, to do that.
Oh, we've gone off topic slightly, but that's fine.
Slightly. We're still on RPGs.
Yeah. Okay, so the impact on gaming and geek culture.
Yeah.
So the rise of lit RPGs significantly influenced gaming and geek culture by creating a unique intersection between literature, role playing, and digital interaction.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess we kind of have naturally kind of covered this already. It
Mm.
has sort of it's created a it's encouraging more people to read.
Hmm.
Um, like Harry Potter did. I mean, there's no even. I think people are too fussy about you need to read the classics. um, yeah, because a lot of these like classic books are boring as shit.
Yeah, they are.
Um,
Yeah, they are.
so if it is encouraging people to read and write, then good on it.
Mm.
It's diverse storytelling. I don't want to force my kids to read a book. If this is something that they want to pick up on their own accord and they get into it,
Mm.
then I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Um, do you think it's had an influence on gaming as well?
Oh,
Do you
for
think it's
sure.
gone
Yeah,
the other way around?
it's one of those things where there's no end to the string. So you can pick it up at any point and tug on it, and it will pull multiple different things. So on the one hand, it's a form of literature which has grown up within our hobby space. So it's specific to our subgenre of people who are entertained by this particular type of of literature and gaming, and socialization. um, and it's role playing is very strong in that respect. And one of the things that I'm most scared about with the way that the Dungeons and Dragons is heading is that it's very antisocial and online. We're losing that ability for people to, particularly young people these days, to gather together physically around a table, have a shared meal, and talk,
Mm.
and interact. It's not just about the game; it's about social interaction. And if you shift to an entirely online format, yes, that's really good for the profits of the shareholders, but the effect it has on the overall population, um, and society is significant because you're removing socialization away from it, and the shareholders have no moral or ethical blowback on them for doing that. And that's the whole problem with corporate structures, is that the shareholders are essentially, corporations exist to shield shareholders from the consequences of their business practices and business decisions. So nobody turns around and blames the shareholders of Hasbro for Hasbro's actions. They blame the executives and the CEOs. The CEOs and executives are just basically mercenaries who are brought in by the shareholders to accomplish the shareholders' needs and wants, and then they get rid of them afterwards. So they're not responsible either. So it's just like the entire corporate structure is designed to absolve responsibility and make profit the primary motivation for anything, which is really, really bad. It always ends up in a soulless, mercenary, churning thing where consumers are just basically chewed up and spat out.
I
Um,
see. Speaking of that, I see Hasbro laid off more people.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're shifting around now to a more digital format. As I said, I'll be doing a live stream probably tomorrow around this time, where I'm going to be talking about the future of Dungeons and Dragons, particularly from the aspect of like content creators and where we can profit from it. But it's going to be grim for a lot of people. I'm optimistic by nature, so I always see the silver lining in things. But yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is about to go through a quite a significant change. So back to the threads and things. So it's both a literature form which has risen up amongst geek culture. So there's a lot of our type of language, our jokes, our shared collective understanding of things through the books that we've all read, the games that we've all played, etc. So you could, like you say, I don't want to read War and Peace and stuff. Those that requirement of intellectuals to have read those books gives them a basis of communication with themselves. That is it's like here's my membership card. I have read this book. I understand these concepts. We can just joke about that, and we'll both have a laugh and understand it because we both have read that book. With LitRPG, that's growing. With geek culture, that's growing as well. It's like, have you read Douglas Adams? Have you read Terry Pratchett? Have you read the Wish Songs of David Eddings? Have you read So there's these authors that are the voice of our culture, our subculture, our genre. And yeah, LitRPG is growing out of that. So not only is it specific to our gaming preferences and now it's our reading preferences, but it's also specific to our in language, our own jargon, our slang and stuff.
Definitely, and it's community built as well. With it's allowed.
That's also a reflection of how our gaming is done as well. It's community built. Groups rise out of groups of people who have shared interests. They're looking for a gaming group, and they'll crowdsource for random people. Yeah. I'm a dungeon master. I've got this campaign. Do you want to join me? It's very much like I'm an author. I've got a book. Do you want to read it? And if you're good enough, you get published.
Yeah, well, this one, it's inspiring new creators. You don't have to, write a book and then try and take it to a publishing house and go, please, oh no, that you need to remove that. You need to change that. This isn't going to work. Or, your pronouns are offensive. Whatever they fucking say these days.
Yeah.
This time you can just get it out there. You can get feedback. It can either take off, it can flop. And also, I noticed a lot of these authors, they don't even go by real names anymore. They're all kind of almost like gamer tags, like myself. So you don't even have to put yourself out there to, you can release something under an alias. You don't have to release it under your Christian name. You can release it under Nacho.
True. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can almost, I know a lot of authors do have, pen names, but, you can, I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's very punk rock, and I'm glad.
I would say
it needed a shake up.
As a YouTuber, if I was like me writing under a pen name would be like me setting up a separate channel to do content that doesn't fit with my current existing channel. So if I wanted to make videos about mounting ladybugs, then I'd have to make a separate channel because it wouldn't fit in with my current audience with my other channel. Yeah. So essentially, that would be me making a pen name and writing something different. Yeah. But a lot of authors have done that.
Mine's is more a nickname than an alias. It's just when people use my actual Christian name, I think I'm in trouble because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
either my wife or my mum. Everyone else just
Yeah.
calls me that.
The Mighty Glue
Shush.
Stick comes from both the Mighty Boosh, so I like the Mighty Boosh, and the glue stick, it comes from the fact that I started off crafting. I'm an artist and crafter and sculptor, and who makes gaming terrain and stuff like that, and paints miniatures and makes miniatures. You can see in the background here of the video that you can't see, I've got like paint sets and all sorts of hoo-ha.
One
Um,
day, if we get a Patreon, if I set up a Patreon, that will go towards probably making these into video format.
yeah. But we're used to doing it as a video format, so it won't be much of a transition for us.
No, just that people want to see
Yeah. You'll be
what we look
subjected
like.
to me sitting here wearing a singlet.
What we look like at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
We do show each other a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Something I want to get into, and I don't know if you've got much to say about it, is the audiobook side of LitRPG has really boosted it.
Mhm.
And there is one particular studio I want to focus on, who is the studio behind Dungeon Crawler Carl. They call themselves Sound Booth Theatre. It's founded by Jeff Hayes, who does the narration. He is amazing. I would love to have him DM a game. He can just, the amount of voices that guy can do at the tip of the hat,
Mm.
unreal. Sound Booth Theatre is almost is very similar to Lit RPG, as in it is really built a community. It has a YouTube channel and does live streams on YouTube where they're doing live readings. He's constantly interacting. They're using, it's almost like a theater in their mind, because they use like those old school goon shows and radio things that we used to do. They're using effects. He's making the most of like people listening on headphones, so he's deliberately having something in one ear and something in the other ear. It's not just, I have listened to a lot of audiobooks, and sometimes it could just be an AI reading it in a monotone voice, and it really takes you out of it.
Yeah. I couldn't get through the a Conan book because the guy pronounced Iron.
Oh, this is my main bugbear with Dragonlance. So Dragonlance, every series of books has a different author, and every author pronounces characters in a different way. Fucking annoys me. Like,
Yeah.
like there's no consistency to the and the names in Dragonlance are quite tricky as well.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the key things that you learn or develop as a writer, and also somebody who's a talker, anybody who's interacting with another person, is that you must be aware of the sensibilities and endurance and preferences of the person that you're talking to, and don't assume that this jerky attitude of like, well, I'm not going to change the way I do anything just for somebody else's benefit. It's like, well, then don't be surprised when nobody wants to listen to you, sort of thing. It's like, as a person who's presenting your writing or your concepts or your role playing or something to other people, you must consider their point of view. Like put yourself in their shoes, be empathetic to how they absorb information. And there are certain things that you do as a writer or a speaker that cater to that and make you better at it. And yeah, it's unfortunate. You just have to do it.
Sorry, my dog was licking himself behind me. It was frigging driving me nuts. He's deaf, so I can't shout at him. So Sound Booth Theatre also made built its popularity off Lit RPG. It specialized in doing Lit RPG books. What's really exciting, because I'm listening to the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I don't know who he plays in it, but in book 6, Patrick Warburton is credited as a narrator.
Oh, really?
I'm hoping he's Carl. I'm hoping Kronk is Carl. His voice would actually be quite.
He would be really good as like Sledge. There's these big rock dudes like. Yeah. He'd be really good as Sledge and those guys. In which case, he'd only have a few lines, but it'd be like, rah, 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 rah. Yeah.
So,
he was really good as the Tick. I really enjoyed him as the Tick.
Yeah, check out their YouTube channel. I'm trying to avoid a few things because I'm not up to date with the book. I jumped on today to watch an interview with Jeff Hayes and Matt Dinnerman, but they started referencing books. They were talking about book 7, and they were talking about events prior to book 7. So I immediately clicked off because I didn't want to ruin it for myself.
Right, yeah.
But they do a lot of live readings on there, and they've got a massive library of other lit RPGs. There's a few here I've added to my Audible wish list. One is called Dead Tide. An ancient lich herald wakes from a centuries-long nap to find a world ruled not by magic, but by the cultivation of highly haunty martial artists obsessed with godhood. All Harold wants to do is go back to sleep. But this brash new world isn't about to let him rest. So now this sleep-deprived overlord must face down this pompous cultivators and reclaim his well-earned beauty sleep at any cost. So I'm guessing it's about an angry Lynch that got woken up by a bunch of people doing martial arts.
Yeah, it sounds interesting because it sounds crazy. Yeah.
Another one, Morning Wood. Everyone loves large chests. It's actually got this voluptuous young lady on the cover of the audiobook.
Uh-huh.
A young adventurer named Himmel embarks on an epic quest to become a legendary hero. Armed with his grandfather's trusty longsword, Himmel must reach level 5 in this perilous newbie zone dungeon to earn his place amongst the bravest adventurers. However, his journey takes an unexpected turn when he encounters an alluring, exposed chest, sparkling a series of comedic and chaotic events that lead him down a path of bizarre adventures.
Sounds more humorous.
The Dominion of Blades, which is actually written by Matt Dinnerman. Jonah finds himself in a mysteriously trapped... Oh, sorry, I'll start that again. Jonah finds himself mysteriously trapped at level 1 inside a once popular online RPG that has now been since shut down due to fatal incidents. With no memory of how he got there, no way to escape, he must navigate a deadly landscape with only 2 companions, facing virtual monsters, real pain, and a human foe. In a world abandoned by millions, survival is his only quest.
Wow.
So I guess he's trapped in an online game that's had its servers.
That sounds significantly darker. But yeah, cool.
And another one that I'm going to read next because I really like the sound of this is called Mimic and Me. Betrayed by slaving nobles and left for dead, Damien's fate takes a wild turn when a mimic offers him a second chance. In a desperate bid for survival, he sacrifices his food to avoid becoming the mimic's next meal, leading to a fusion that transforms him into a powerful half-man, half-mimic creature. Now equipped with extraordinary abilities, Damien must navigate his new life while battling his companion's insatiable craving for cake and human flesh, discovering that his monstrous powers could change the fate of the world forever.
Well, yeah, they all seem to take a deep dive into weirdness right there. Yeah.
So these are all sound booth theatre productions. I really like the sound of the mimic.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, the idea of a half man, half mimic really appeals to me. I thought Mimic was a Wizards of the Coast IP, but obviously I was wrong there.
I don't know. Yeah. One thing I could see as a development or evolution of LitRPG is tie it more closely into marketing of a role playing system. So essentially, like one of the things that appeals with the basic set of D&D is that it had a solo adventure built into the first booklet of the game that you read. So you learn to play through playing. And in LitRPG, you can learn a RPG system through reading a really good novel series, and then you're primed and ready to play the game already. Like I'm all ready to jump into a Dungeon Crawler Cow type RPG. I would certainly do that for sure.
If he released an RPG Kickstarter, it would get funded in an hour.
I don't know if there's actually an official RPG of Dungeon Crawler Cow. I think there probably is. But yeah, for sure, I would definitely buy a
Let's
rulebook.
approach it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if there is a Dungeon Crawler Cow RPG and you have it or know where to get it, let us know, readers, please, listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, mate?
No. Have we got any other points to go through?
I did I forgot. I fell asleep last night and forgot to ask a question, but I did post it up this morning, and it looks like a few people have come back.
Some readers' letters.
Yeah.
Is it
yeah.
time to cue the music?
Yeah, cue the music.
Bring the letters. Hear the call. Wizards read them one and all.
Bring the letters. Hear the call. Wizards read them one and all. Questions from the listeners. Voices loud and clear. You can have your opinions read out here.
I don't know why I think of the Muppets. It's time to cue the music.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I asked, do you enjoy reading LitRPG? Is it a genre you'd recommend, and what are some of your favorite titles? So Andrew Eaton,
Hi, Andrew.
He Who Fights Monsters by Shirtaloon.
Mhm.
Hands down, you'll laugh, cry, and everything in between. It's the only series I've ever read more than twice. If you take the plunge, make sure to say hi to Clive's wife. I don't know. That's an in-joke, I guess. And Defiance of the Four by The First Deffer. So this is what I mean by these guys, authors' names. They don't use traditional names. Spelling errors aside, it's a great series with weird charm. So that's another thing. That's probably something you should mention. These books aren't edited.
Yeah. You don't know what you're getting into. It's not because you don't have that. You're getting it through a publishing house or Penguin Books or something like that. You don't know what quality you're walking into. It's a grab bag. Yeah.
They will be
and so
filled with grammar and spelling mistakes.
yeah, so there is a lot of word of mouth promotion, which is why Matt, when at the end of every single Dungeon Crawler Carl thing, it's like, please go on to Goodreads and give me a review. The reviews are what I live or die on, and it's 100% true that word of mouth and crowdfunding through people enjoying it and telling their friends about it is exactly how the sorting system works now. So it really is capitalism, in its finest form. That the market determines the quality. So yeah, and that's a really good filter. That is a really, really good filter, because even a company can be biased, right? But the market never is. The market will always give you. It will always filter quality, and put it.
The market is bullshit. I mean, you look at something like Harry Potter and Twilight. The popularities of those two series spun off so much shit.
Yeah,
because it was cool to have like a young readers wizard fantasy. So we got heaps of young readers fantasy. Some was good. Percy Jackson's good example, but there was a lot of tripe. And then we just got inundated with like gothic romantic novels after Twilight. So, and that's just because that's what's popular. So that's what's publishing houses are.
Yep. And authors will be,
I'm looking for.
That same thing of that trap that first-time creators who are getting into the market look at and say, well, what's popular? What can I do that's going to get an audience? That's not the question you should ask. It's, what am I passionate about? What am I most interested about? What do I want to put out there, whether I'm going to earn money from it or not? That is what you produced. Always follow your passions, because otherwise you're running uphill from the beginning. Run with the wind behind your back, and that wind is what you want to do.
Brian Ebel. Read, not so much, but they make great audiobooks, and I drive a lot for work. Some of my favorites are the Caverns and Creatures series, the Land series, and Morning Wood. Everyone loves large chests. We just talked about that one.
Yeah.
And Newtown. So yeah, I agree. Audiobooks. If you're not into reading, check out the audiobooks. The Dungeon Crawler Carl audiobook is actually free if you go to Sound Booth Theatres. Book 1 is free.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so you can dip your toes and get a taste, and it won't cost you anything.
Yeah, you get a pretty good experience in the first book of what the entire series is going to be like in Dungeon Crawler.
Yeah, and it is. If you're not into reading, the audiobook production on that thing is amazing.
Yeah. Not into or not able to as easily as an able-bodied person, for sure.
What are you saying? I'm disabled?
No, I'm just saying that we're on a spectrum of different humans. Some people have got visual disorders and things like that they find it difficult to get the printed word.
Hey man, I know you're a scribe.
That's all I'm saying.
I know you're a scribe, but you don't have to do your reading snobbery.
Well, that's the thing. I have the advantage of being a user that my writing is already it's in my voice, and I present it as my voice. I'm always surprised that people want my written scripts, but that's what my Patreon was all about. It's printing up my scripts and putting them on there. That was the best advice I had when I was starting out on YouTube, was write my scripts and read from a script. And I was like, why? I could just talk about monsters, but he was so true. It was so correct. Yeah, absolutely. Because not only has it made my ums and ahs disappear from my spoken language, but it has made my scripts much more concise and organized, so that I don't repeat myself, and it allows me to do research a lot more and put stuff in there, which is really good.
Something I should definitely do, because I still am in a.
And the side benefit is that it's giving me writer skills, writer muscles, so I can actually now probably write a novel a lot easier than before.
I thought you were making fun of my Yorkshire heritage.
I
Can't read nor write, but I can drive tractor.
I didn't know you had Yorkshire heritage. I think my English heritage is Shrewsbury, or around the silver mining area around there.
Right, Jesse Prevost. I love to read and I love D&D, so I thought I'd be all about them, but I had trouble getting into them. I've read up to book 6 of He Who Fights Monsters. Book 5 and 6 got progressively less about the storytelling and more about the technical descriptions of how different powers worked.
Yeah.
I was bored by the time I got through book 6, and I couldn't wait for it to end.
Yeah.
I also listened to the first audiobook of Dungeon Crawler Carl, which everyone raves about. It's definitely worth a listen rather than reading, but then again, I get lost in the way. I don't get lost in it the way I do with other books. So yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone.
I mean, that's a very legitimate critique about He Who Fights Monsters, that there is a lot more RPG stuff in there describing it. So that was why I was like, oh, there's definitely an RPG involved in this story, because it's a lot of page filler sort of thing, a lot of repeated stuff, because he sort of brings up his stats and stuff, and it just sort of fills up the page, and you sort of skip over it because you don't really need to know all that. With Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's much more tied in with a plot. Like, he's definitely trying to progress this skill and that skill, and use the safe rooms and the workshops and things like that. And there's a plot progression there that's integrated much more into the story. So it's the RPG element is very blended into the story element in Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Well, it's how they're surviving, and it's not just his skills as well; it's his friends' skills. He's helping them progress.
And he's constantly looking for loopholes in how to game the system. Because the system is not fair at all, and he knows it, and all the characters know it, and all the participants know it, and all the viewers know it. So yeah, it's like, it's not fair because life ain't fair. The galaxy ain't fair.
Yep. All right. A couple of not negative, but Adam Buxton. Is this actually even a notable genre?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. Justin Goulsby. Honestly, I didn't even know this was a thing until you asked. I had to Google it. By appearances, it just sounds like westernized isekai.
Yeah.
I guess it's more, isekai is, I feel, more different. It's not just novels, it's video games.
I get comments like that all the time. It's like, oh, this is just like this video game. It's like, nah, Dungeons and Dragons has been around since 1973, so your video game is like Dungeons and Dragons, my friend. So it's like there's that bias of, I recognize it through something that I know, and it's like, yes, but that doesn't mean that your thing is more legitimate than the other thing. I get that all the time.
Well, like I said, isekai is Japanese for different world. So I could say that
isekai exist before RPG Lit did, or didn't it? Did it exist before? Did it exist before video games or not? No.
But then you could argue isekai is a piss take of Alice in Wonderland. Like I said before,
it's like, who invented video games? Not Japan. They certainly helped, but they didn't invent it.
Or Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. These are these are things that people have gone into other worlds.
Yeah.
This is something that has existed before. Just
Yeah.
Dungeon Crawler Carl, not a big LitRPG fan, but Tiny Gods, you'll thank me if you pick this one up. I want to just go in the comment section of this one. So this is John Hart. Underneath it, Alex Zide writ, God damn it, Donut. More people need to know about this. And then Becky Glenn added, they will not break me.
Yeah. So yeah, you already see it's already like a meme, right? Yeah. God damn it, Donut.
Yeah, he's got a catchphrase.
And also the characters who are native to the galaxy in the Dungeon Crawler Carl universe will use this common swear word, which is by his left tit. You don't know who they're referring to or why it's his tit, but like quite a lot of the characters say it. It's like by his tit or it's something tit. And it was just like, that's so funny because I know that people are going to start saying that who are fans of the book and not even realize why they're saying it. Because it's quite a funny exclamation. It's like, by his left tit. Great Zeus!
Timothy Johnson. I wouldn't say they're good, but I've listened to like a dozen, and I find that they're great background noise, and I find myself stupidly hooked to them.
Right. I wouldn't say they're good, but I've listened to 12. What?
The Wandering Inn is a bargain of simply how long they are. I've heard a lot about this one, and apparently The Wandering Inn is now the largest fantasy book ever written. It's got the most words to one series.
Huh.
I think it's a web series, that one. I've heard it's one of the older ones. The Primal Hunter is probably my favorite and probably the best at world building, the characters, and leveling system. Everyone Loves Large Chests is the one I'm most embarrassed by reading. This guy's all over the shit.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, we've heard that from 3 different people so far, so clearly it's an embarrassing thing to read, but it appeals.
It sounds like it's the most juvenile humor. So
I mean,
I'll probably love it.
I mean, the premise of the title seems to bear out in reality.
Yeah, I
don't trust anybody who doesn't like big boobs.
Well, it's Morning Wood. Everyone Loves Large Chests is the name of the book. I'm going to add that to my list anyway. And that's. I think I'll just do a refresh on the internet there and see if anyone else jumped in. But I was meant to post this up last night, but I decided I was going to watch Rings of Power, and I think I got halfway through and fell asleep, and I woke up, it was 1 a.m. So, nah, nothing else really. Just people just commenting on other comments. So, yeah. So we'll wrap it up there. But when you picked the subject, I was, like I said, I didn't think I'd have much to say about it, but I was quite surprised about.
Like I say, follow your passions. We're both passionate about this book series so far, so we're clearly motivated to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's a genre I will be reading more of. Starting with Everyone Loves Large Chests, or me and my mimic.
I feel as enthusiastic. I feel like the same vibe of people who like Terry Pratchett and the Discworld is the same people who like Dungeon Crawler Carl and that thing. It's got the same sort of vibe to the community, and it's got the same sort of memes and things like that, and it's really entertaining to read.
And you can now officially buy it from Whitcoulls or whatever your book retailer is.
Yeah,
because Penguin House had now.
So although I have read them, this is one of the things I do. Although I have read them, I will buy the physical books just so that I have them in my library to lend them out to people to read, because they're that good.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a quick search and see.
And the covers look really good too.
Yeah, I think that's AI covers, isn't it?
I don't know.
The Penguin House has got one. Has got a more standard cover. Oh, see, it's available on Mighty Ape now. So
great. Okay.
Yeah, the physical copy. So yeah, I don't have much else to say. No, I enjoyed that. We went off topic a little bit, but
that's right.
Yeah.
It'd be boring if we didn't.
Yeah. I've got one job.
Yeah. And also now I've got a list of things to read: The Defiance of the Fall, Morning Wood, The Wandering Inn, Primal Hunter. So there's a bunch of books that I can investigate.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think they're included if you have a Amazon, or what do they call them? What's the Amazon's book service called?
Goodreads.
Kindle.
Kindle. Yeah, I've got Kindle.
Kindle Plus. Is that
Kindle
what
Unlimited.
Kindle Unlimited.
So my Kindle Unlimited subscription allows me to read all of the Dungeon Crawler Cow books. They're included.
And I think He Who Fights Monsters as well. I noticed they're only available on Audible. So they must have done something. And Audible is also owned by Amazon. So I'm guessing these guys made some sort of deal with Amazon to get the exclusive rights to these books.
I wonder if Spotify is going to buy Audible one day. It will set up something that is as good as Audible. Yeah,
well, Spotify has added audiobooks now if you're I think if you have a membership.
Mm-hmm. I certainly do. I couldn't imagine using Spotify without my premium because, ads on Spotify, no thank you.
Yeah, I do. But it's only certain books. So, for example, I'm reading the Dresden Files, and it's only from book 5 and beyond is on Spotify for free.
Mm-hmm.
So books 1 to 4, I had to buy to read. All the Discworld novels and all the Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide novels are all on Spotify if you got premium. And they are read by who's the guy that who played Bilbo Baggins?
Ian Holmes?
No, Bilbo. Martin. What's his name? Martin Short? No, Martin Short. That's Three Amigos. Flip.
I keep getting him mixed up with Simon Pegg. He's not Simon Pegg. He's the other guy.
Oh my God, Martin Freeman. Is it?
Martin Freeman. That sounds right.
Me typing away.
I think you're right. I think it's Martin Freeman.
Gosh, it's now. I've bought The Hobbit. I want The Hobbit the film, not The Hobbit the book. Martin Freeman. Yeah. So he reads. He reads the Douglas Adams series. Except for the first one. I think the first one's read by Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry, yeah. Stephen Fry is perfect for that narration. Just perfect.
And I believe it is... Who does the Discworld narration? It's another really good actor.
I would love to narrate an audiobook for somebody. That'd be fun.
You've got the voice for it, mate. You can narrate our LitRPG when we find the right one. So what I was really annoyed, back in the day, Nigel Planner originally did the Discworld narration.
Wow.
But his versions have been removed. And it's now, it's that guy who was the Tick. Peter, he's got a really, it was Nigel Planner and Tony Robertson. So that's Neil and Baldrick from Blackadder.
Right, yeah.
They were the original narrators of Discworld, and now it has become who was his name?
Percy.
Patrick.
It was Percy from Blackadder, not Baldrick.
No, Tony Robinson was Baldrick.
Were you saying Neil from Young Ones?
Yeah, Nigel Planner was Neil from Young Ones, but Tony Robinson
is Baldrick. Oh, I see what you mean. Baldrick. Sorry, I didn't.
They took turns.
I had a syntax error.
Peter Serovowitz. Is that his name? The guy that played the Tick?
Oh, the original Tick cartoon.
I know Patrick Warburton was the
People
Tick
of the world, what? Knock off all that evil. Villains of the world.
He does the new narration of Discworld, anyway.
Right, that'd be good.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up there. So, cheers, mate. We'll figure out something. Fred might be back next week. He sent me a message. He's been using his time off to watch the prequels. He said he's got a lot to talk about.
Good.
So, if Fred's back, I guess we'll dive into the Star Wars prequels. If he's not, me and you will find something else we can easily chat about.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little thing there. I feel a bit sorry for Fred. His computer died, which basically shut down his entire YouTube channel.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, jump on his Patreon and support him. I think his Patreon's only $1 a month, which is New Zealand, which is not even a real dollar if you're anywhere else in the
It's
world.
peso. It's a Pacific
Yeah.
peso.
Yeah, feel sorry for the guy, mate. But he's got a new computer and he's starting again. So yeah, looking forward to having
We
Fred
can
back.
rebuild him bigger, stronger, faster than before.
Yeah.
So in the meanwhile, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Oh, we swapped when we worked it out.
Good night.
All right. Cheers, everyone.